This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Thank you for tuning into the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, where we talk the latest and greatest news in the world of sports. As always, I'm Alex.
And I'm Anthony.
And we are here today to talk to you about sports. We have a Thursday. Today is a Thursday, of course, October 13th. We have football tonight. We have baseball tonight, playoff baseball in the NLDS to decide who is facing the Cubs in the NLCS. And we have plenty of news for you because hockey started last night also. So we're going to go ahead and go through our first segment, which is going to be the Thursday night football game. Take a break, come back, we'll talk baseball. And we'll come back and we'll do what's trending to end the show off. Lots of little bit of news here and there. Some impressive starts in the world of hockey. Some signings in the world of football. And some UFC knowledge as well. But let's go ahead and start in football. Tonight we have the 4-1 Denver Broncos taking on the 1-4 San Diego Chiefs within the AFC West rivalry. These two teams have had quite a while going now. Trevor Siemian's expected to start in this one. He's not playing horribly. He's definitely helped them to, 4 of those wins. And then you flip-flop to Phillip Rivers, who's playing well, but the team just can't hold on to a win.
Yeah, it always seems, it's a weird thing with the Chargers. I saw the stat that said they had the most time spent leading in the NFL. Just somehow it always manages to backfire, and they always seem to be basically, 40 seconds left in the game, first and 10 on your own 20-yard line. Here you go, Phillip Rivers. Have fun.
Well, it hasn't even really been Phillip Rivers' fault.
No, I'm not even saying it's his fault. I'm just saying, here's the ball in the 20. Mm-hmm. You have 40 seconds. Go the length of the field.
Oh, because they blow a lead.
Because they blow a lead, and it's just here you go. Here's the ball. Go 80 yards. Have fun.
Yeah, I mean, these teams are they're pretty even if you look at the stat line. You know what I mean? I say Rivers has an edge on Siemian as a passer because he's been doing it longer, obviously. Mm-hmm. Melvin Gordon is running a little bit better than C.J. Anderson right now. Only 6 more yards, but he's got 3 more touchdowns. I guess that's a product of how the Broncos' offense has kind of been this year. Mm-hmm. And then each leading receiver has 26 receptions and 28 receptions in favor of Demaryius Thomas and Travis Benjamin. Demaryius has 381. Travis has 394. 3 touchdowns for Demaryius and 2 for Travis Benjamin. So these are very similar teams, it almost seems like, but one has a very good defense.
Yeah, that's the thing with the Denver Broncos. Now they don't have DeMarcus Ware. He's out for the game, but you still got Von Miller just wrecking, offensive lines all around the league. The whole scheme of the Denver Broncos is basically we're going to get you fast, and we're going to make your quarterback's life a living hell. They've been doing that ever since the Super Bowl. We thought Cam Newton would do well against that. He came in, strip sack, everything else.
Yep.
And, twice. And, the thing with the Broncos is we've seen with Trevor Siemian, you don't have to necessarily be like the best quarterback in the world. We saw it last year with Peyton Manning. All you have to do is basically not give up terrible, disaster plays, and it'll keep you in the game long enough to possibly win the game. Last week they didn't win the game. They lost to the Falcons. But, they pretty much either won or been in every single game.
Yeah, they really haven't. I mean, that's kind of all you ask for from Siemian. I mean, he doesn't have amazing numbers. Right. 68 for 101, 824 yards. He's had 6 touchdowns, 3 interceptions.
Right.
One can imagine he probably would have eclipsed 1,000 yards last week if he played. Mm-hmm. But he's not exactly out there, leading the league in passing or anything, but he's minimizing mistakes at least. And when you have a decent running game like they do, of course, then you have the great defense that helps get you the ball. I mean, there's a reason why this team is 4-1.
Yeah.
And it's not because their quarterback's playing lights out either. So this is going to be an interesting game. I fully think the Broncos are going to win this one. The Chargers, I think, have just had too many problems. You mentioned to me this week that at the end of every week so far through the NFL, all 5 weeks, the Chargers have put somebody on IR. Mm-hmm. As of right now, Brandon Flowers is out. They're probably their quote-unquote best corner left because Jason Verrett went on the IR. Brandon Flowers, not a bad player, but when he's out, it's a significant drop already with Fred out. No offense to the guys there, but a drop in skill at the cornerback position. You have two very good receivers in Emmanuel Sanders and Demaryius Thomas, not to mention some of the younger guys. And then you have a lot of questionable guys also. Offensive lineman, Orlando Franklin's questionable. That offensive line's already tricky enough. You have another corner who's questionable, Craig Mager. Dexter McCluster, who you signed to kind of help out with the offense because sometimes, they slow down, or your kicking game. He's questionable. And their linebacker, Denzel Perryman, who is a starter who plays quite often, is hurt also. Obviously, you said DeMarcus Ware's out for the Broncos. Simeon's questionable, but it looks like he's going to be starting tonight. And then Kayvon Webster is questionable also, but I believe he's set to play. So a lot more significant injuries, besides Ware, of course. A lot more significant injuries for the Chargers. Obviously, like I said, they have put out their own starting lineup in sense, not literal, but they could have a IR team currently.
Right.
They're getting there. So that's the tricky thing for them. I mean, even when they were all healthy, this team was still very up and down, it looked like. So the thing to me is the Broncos, they have some injuries, quarterback position, one of your defensive leaders. Your defense is still very good. Your offense is putting up points. Yeah. They haven't been really brutally bad. I mean, even last week in their loss, they put up 16. They haven't been, underscoring really. I mean, they won their first week 21, 34 the next week, 29, and then 27. I mean, they're putting up points. I mean, their defense helps, but they have the Chargers this week, obviously. I think this is definitely going to be a win for the Chargers, in my opinion.
For the Chargers?
I'm sorry, for the Broncos. It's not going to be a lose for the Chargers, in my opinion. A loss for the Chargers. I mean, and this is a tough stretch for the Chargers, too, because the Chargers, after the Broncos, who they get to play at home, which is the only reprieve, really, for them. After the Broncos, they have the Falcons, the Broncos again, and the Titans, who, I would say that could be an easier matchup, but they looked good on Sunday.
Right.
This team can kind of turn it on not when they want to, but they can kind of turn it on and turn it off. It seems like, and not like they choose to do so, but they can definitely run with you. The only upside it looks like for the Chargers, Joey Bosa played on Sunday. He looked good.
Yeah, 2 sacks, looked pretty good.
Yeah, so at least you have your first round pick out there. He almost got to the quarterback more than just the 2 sacks he had.
Yeah.
And albeit against I don't really know how good of an offensive line Oakland has. I don't know if I can really pace it to something. Right. Because, for one, I don't watch enough games to just focus on them.
Yeah.
But
also, it was his very first game.
Exactly.
And to do that in your first professional game to get 2 sacks, it, helps validate the high pick you got.
But does it help validate the time you spent away from football?
That too, yeah.
But, I think the Chargers are already at the bottom of this division. They could easily lose the next 3 games, Broncos, Falcons, Broncos. They could be sitting at 1-7. And the Broncos, the Broncos are going to keep doing what they do. As of right now, like I said, the Broncos, if I get this to load, the Broncos have the Chargers tonight, obviously, like I said. They have the Chargers again in 2 weeks, or if that's a bye week. They have the Texans in between. They could win their next 3 games, and they could be sitting at a decent 7-1. 2 flip-flop teams.
Right.
That's just going to be probably another boring-ish Thursday night game. There haven't been that many entertaining ones.
Oh, yeah, it's absolutely going to be one of those, boring games, one of those, worst quality games because you only had a couple of days to rest. I wouldn't be surprised if the Chargers won because they're at home in San Diego, and usually you give more of an edge to the home team unless it's a, Browns game or something like that. You give a little bit of advantage to them. It is a division game.
Well, they're 1-1 at home this year. They won their only game at home, but they've lost their other game at home too. So
right. Just, I don't know, the Thursday night game, Broncos are coming back from Atlanta, going, back to the West Coast, a little less time to kind of rest and recuperate, everything else like that. San Diego was in Oakland, so they literally just kind of, moved up the state. We saw how good Bosa was, but, I would have, if I'm a betting man, which I'm not really a betting man, but if I was, I would say Denver. But I think it's going to be a pretty close game. I think it's going to be one of those kind of, choppy 23-17 kind of games where it's just kind of field goals, and then you kind of just run out of the building. All right, congratulations, we got the win. Let's go home.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it going that way. And then again, I saw – what game was it? Well, I saw the Broncos kind of having one of those games a couple weeks ago. Mm-hmm. And Trevor Siemian threw like 4 touchdown passes.
I mean, yeah, there's that. Yeah.
So, I mean, you can kind of look at it either way, I suppose. I believe that was the Colts game or the Buccaneers game. I forget. No, it wasn't the Buccaneers. Maybe it was the Buccaneers.
I think Buccaneers was, I think that was his last.
No, that was the game he got injured.
Oh, that was the game he got injured. Yeah.
So it was the week before that then. So I guess it was.
Against Cincinnati.
Cincinnati game,
Yeah,
you think it was, honestly. I mean, he looked good in that game. So you never know, really. You expect sometimes with football is wacky where you expect it to go one. It's like baseball, too. Sometimes you expect a pitching duel, and then all of a sudden it's 4-5,
right.
Or a football game where you expect like a boring game and one player just goes off. So.
Oh yeah, because you said the week before Trevor Siemian was 22 of 33 for 266 and 1 interception, not even a touchdown. Mm-hmm. The week before that against Indy, then he goes to Cincinnati and just dominates 4 touchdowns.
He's against a team with a better defense than the Colts too. Mm-hmm. A team that's a perennial playoff team, the division winner last year. So.
Right.
Football's wacky in that sense, and baseball's wacky in that sense too. And that brings us to our next segment, which we're going to take a break first. Mm-hmm. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk the NLDS deciding Game 5 between the Los Angeles Dodgers and the Washington Nationals. So we'll take a quick break, come back, and talk baseball here at the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
And we're back here at the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. We're going to move into baseball, and Game 5 of the NLDS currently stands at 2-2. Los Angeles winning the game on Tuesday. So, we have Rich Hill taking on Max Scherzer. It is in Washington. This is winner take all. The victor goes on to face the Chicago Cubs, who are fresh off their clinching win over the San Francisco Giants on Tuesday night. The game would be played in Chicago, obviously, as the number 1 seed coming the winner there. But we have another Washington Dodger game to talk about today. This is going to be an intense one. I think, Hill got a little more roughed up in his first go than Scherzer did. Scherzer didn't have a great go of it either, though. Neither of them won their start. So I think it's really got to be a really big reversal of roles here for both of them if they want to win this one. I mean, if you look at the last game, both of these teams led at certain points. Dallas. The Dodgers obviously came back and won it eventually. They took it in the 8th, pretty much going up by 1 run. But they blew a lead that they had. Kershaw left the bases loaded when he was taken from the game. And then a hit batter here, a double there. And, we're looking at a Nationals advancing, a national team advancing to, or at least a national team advancing through a postseason, a series for the first time ever. Right. They've never done it. So, I don't know. This is going to be a tricky one. I want to give the purely based off the pitching matchup, I want to say Scherzer's favorite. He's at home. Mm-hmm. He's got full rest. Hill's on short rest, I think. Scherzer has full rest. Mm-hmm. He's their best pitcher. This is what they brought him there for. Mm-hmm. This is what they signed him that 7-year contract for back in 2015. He's played very well as of late, other than his last start. Mm-hmm. He was a starter, like I said, in Game 5. He gave 4 runs in 6 innings. He struck out 5. But, Clayton Kershaw pitched a gem that day, too. It was a 4-3. He very well could have wackily came out with the win in that one. Yeah. He allowed a first-inning home run to Corey Seager in that one, and then Turner homered later in the 3rd. So those are kind of what sunk him there. He has given up the home run ball a lot this year. But I definitely think he has the edge, and I think that he has more of a stopping power than maybe Rich Hill has had, who hasn't been amazing for them this year.
Right.
At least not always. He gave up a 3-run home run in his start in the fourth inning of Game 2, and then he allowed 6 hits through 4 innings. He obviously got the loss, but he pitched well at the same time. I think that you could very well see, say, Hill struggles early. You could maybe see them take him out and maybe favor Julio Urias, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Put somebody in kind of a stopgap like that, like we saw that with Samardzija in Game 2 of the NLDS for the Giants.
Mm-hmm.
He struggled early, and then they put, I want to say, Contos in to stretch. Yes, it's Contos to stretch, and then Ty Block came in. Oh, you mean we've seen that a lot? That we kind of saw that for the first time with the Giants. At least in recent years, with the Giants back in 2014 with Lincecum,
right,
as a short reliever, mid reliever, kind of bridge gap guy.
Yeah.
So I could very well see that happening with the Dodgers. I mean, and you can also look at, this is win or go home.
Yeah.
With the Nationals doing something along the same lines.
Mm-hmm. And you saw last time Rich Hill pitched, he only pitched 4 1/3 innings,
Mm-hmm.
and Max Scherzer's looked at as the guy in Washington. Like that's their.
That's what they brought him there for.
That's what they brought him there for. Rich Hill, 36 years old, been in the league for a while. The Dodgers might get a little gun-shy, something like that. Like, let's say he gets through 3 innings and he's got like a Clayton Kershaw situation where it's like the bases are loaded. They're not going to trust him necessarily to get through that. They'll probably just go to the bullpen quick and just all right, that's fine. We're not trying to have you give up a grand slam and then all of a sudden our confidence just gets shot. They may give a little bit more leeway. The Nationals might to Scherzer. Mm-hmm. Let him pitch a little bit longer because they trust him because he's got, basically double the amount of innings pitched. Like you look at Rich Hill throughout the entire year, he has 111 and a third innings pitched. And you go look at Scherzer, who's been a workhorse, for a while now, whether through Washington, whoever. This year at the end of everything, he had a total of 228 in the third inning. So he's basically good to go, and he's not going to get as tired. Yeah, he didn't have as good a game last time when he pitched in the playoffs, but at the same time, it's still 6 innings. He went through a little bit the 4 runs. It's not great, but not terrible kind of thing.
Yeah, if anybody that knows the Washington Nationals or knows baseball knows this is the guy they want going in this game.
100%.
And they'll never say it, but anybody who knows anything about baseball, the Dodgers knows that if they could have Kershaw pitching, they would. Mm-hmm. This is just the best of what they can put out. Hill is probably their best option.
Right.
Other than Kershaw at this point. And then going back to, having to, if they say they have to relieve early in this one. We saw it last game with Kenta Maeda. He only lasted through 3, I think. We saw first inning trouble for him. He left the bases loaded. Yeah, he struck out. Oh, man, I forget his name. I'm not going to try to sit here and remember it. But he struck out somebody to end the inning there with the bases loaded. But he, from the snap, was an issue, at least at first, with his command and really getting the ball where he wanted it. And getting guys out. So if that's the case, we'll see that again. And I think, like we said, Scherzer's he's more of a solid choice here. Mm-hmm. Obviously, he's the guy they want in this game. And you want your best when you need your best in a time that you can't have anything but your best,
Yeah.
And then this is huge for Washington, too, because, like I said, since their, induction into baseball in 2005, I want to say.
Right.
They have not won a postseason series. They lost Game 5 at home to the Cardinals in 2012. They lost in 4 games to the Giants 2 years later in 2014. So the last time, Washington as a baseball franchise won a postseason was in 1924 as the Washington Senators beating the New York Giants at that time, in the 1924 World Series in Washington. So they have a lot, they talk about the Cubs, you just haven't won a World Series. They haven't even won a series.
Right.
You know what I mean? The Cubs are right on track for, possibly doing that. I think that they are favored in either matchup between these two teams. Personally, I think the Nationals probably stand a little bit better of a chance based off of their offense and maybe their pitching as well, with Gio Gonzalez out there too, and their type of lineup that they have, lefty-righty kind of combinations. But personally, I gotta give it to the Nationals in this one. The Nationals have looked strong, especially at home. They go back home for this one. They have their starter that they want in this game. They have their ace. The Dodgers have had somebody who has struggled. They got him in August from the A's. Mm-hmm. He's 0-2 since then with an 8.59 ERA and 2 postseason starts. He played. He has one other playoff start back a couple years ago in 2007. I guess it's actually a while ago. It's almost 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It seems funny thinking of that. When he was at the Cubs, and he only went 3 innings. So he doesn't exactly have the best postseason resume, I guess you should say.
Right.
I want to say, yeah, I got to give it to the Nationals in this one. But these NLDS matchups have shown that you can't really predict anything. Weirdly enough, almost more so in this series than in the Giants-Cubs series, because the Giants-Cubs series, you expected what happened in those games to happen, just not maybe the way they happened at times. But this one, you have people that are winning in the 8th and they end up losing. You have the Nationals coming back and winning. You have the Dodgers coming back and winning. It's just been back and forth. For 2 series that went 3 games in sweeps in the AL.
Yeah.
You got some. I'm not saying those weren't good matchups. I'm sure the Blue Jays and the Indians were very big fans of their games.
Right.
But you have gotten your money's worth and then some of these NL games.
Yeah, and you take a look at one thing that's going to be fun to look at is like Daniel Murphy, the guy who was great for the Mets.
Struck out Daniel Murphy when the bases were loaded.
Right. So you get Daniel Murphy, who last year with the Mets, postseason god, for a while. He kind of lost it in the World Series, but did well last year. So far this year, batting .462 in the 4 games, done pretty well. He's somebody who, because Bryce Harper struggled a little bit. He hasn't been able to get up to
he's
a good start. He only has an RBI. So
he'll have some eyes on him in this game.
Yeah, he's going to, Bryce Harper's going to be the one that gets the most attention because he's, Bryce Harper or whatever.
He kind of almost, not demands it, but he kind of radiates it.
Yeah.
With his persona.
Yeah, because he's only, So only like 3 hits for Bryce Harper so far in the playoffs, when you compare that to Daniel Murphy. So, you take a look at those things. You got a guy who, you say that they would rather have Clayton Kershaw, and I don't disagree with you, but I would also be kind of scared if I was the Dodger fan with Clayton Kershaw.
Well, I don't mean that, if Kershaw, I'm saying they would want their ace, not it's been 2 days, he can pitch.
No, I don't mean that. I understand, even if he was on full rest, if I was a Dodger fan, I would still be scared with Kershaw. Just because I don't know what the thing is, but in the playoffs, he's not the same dude.
Yeah, he pitched great in Game 4.
Mm-hmm.
He really did. He pitched well in Game 4, and then he just had that. He let the bases get loaded. He wasn't demanding anymore. Not demanding. He wasn't commanding his locations anymore. He was missing high. He walked a couple guys, and he gave up. Back to back to I don't know how many in a row hits, but that's the problem for any pitcher really. And then Kershaw, you're right. He just doesn't look.
Well, it's not even that he does that.
Same.
Yeah, it's not even that he does that bad. It just seems like he has that one disaster inning.
Yes.
He'll go 6 innings, but then through 5 innings he'll give up 4 or 5 hits, unearned run or something like that, and it's just it's not too terrible. But then the 6th inning comes, and either he gives up a 3-run bomb or, like you said, leaves the bases loaded or something like that. It's just that one inning for Kershaw that will kind of make the ERA go out of whack and look like he was just terrible throughout the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's always been tricky for him, and there's something about Kershaw in the playoffs. It's he can't close it out.
Right.
He can't. He'll start really great. On Tuesday, he started really well.
Right.
And then there's something that just gets him.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. And that's until he can figure that out. In what I assume with my prediction will be next year.
Right.
The playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Then he's gonna kind of be looked at in a weird way. You have this amazing regular season pitcher, and then you have somebody who can't get it done in the playoffs. It's like Peyton Manning in the early 2000s.
Right.
Somebody who could win 13 games every year and then get bounced in the first or second round of the playoffs. If they had a bye. Or
even somebody in baseball like A-Rod.
Yeah, exactly. Who couldn't win it for a long time, or played really well in the regular season and had a horrible postseason. You know? It's as of now, that's how Kershaw's kind of looked at least in some people's eyes. So it's going to be a good game no matter what. Yeah. I'm going to give it to the Nationals.
Yeah, me too.
Do you have a score maybe you want to give me?
6-5. I'm going to say it's a pretty tight game. Give up a little bit more than the normal runs just because I think the bullpen's going to be used a lot because both, Dusty and Roberts are both going to be kind of on edge, this being a do-or-die kind of situation. Unless everything's rolling for, Scherzer, I think they're basically going to go to 4 or 5 guys total each, just as a kind of we don't want this thing to get out of hand, give up a few runs here and there. Yeah, probably around 6-5.
Let's put it this way. Let's make it an easier answer. Well, not easier, but let's make it an easier assumption. How long does Hill go?
Over under 3 2/3.
I was going to give him 4.
4, yeah.
I was going to give him 4. It maybe runs into some trouble then.
Mm-hmm.
Because like you said too, none of these managers will be shy about putting somebody in.
Right.
They're not going to let they're not going to let some inning beat them if they don't at least attempt to stop the bleeding.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if that's all said and done, tomorrow, no matter what, you guys will have an NLCS matchup.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And, of course, you guys will talk about it. I'm not here. But that being said, we'll take our last break. We're going to come back. We're going to watch what's trending. Some little, it's probably about 4 or 5 stories I have.
Mm-hmm.
Some that you have that we'll talk about here in a minute.
Yep.
And we'll be right back here at the Golden State Media Concept Sports Podcast.
Do you want to be healthier, yet you just don't know what to do? All these shows telling you this and that, but nothing seems to work. Well, listen close. Golden State Media Concepts has got something great for you. The Health and Wellness Podcast dedicated to workout trends, healthy eating habits, diet, and everything about healthy living. Join us in our banters as we help you not just live life to the fullest, but live it to the healthiest.
And we're back here at the Golden State Media Concept Sports Podcast. I'm going to hit you guys with a little bit of what's trending to end the show. Let's start in the world of football. Some deals that have snuck through the cracks here this week. Justin Forsett was released a couple weeks ago by the Ravens, while he has been signed by the running back needy Lions. It's a 1-year vet minimum. He'll get $885,000 in a base salary with no signing bonus or incentives. Pretty decent addition to the Lions, I guess.
Yeah, just something, to help out with them. He hasn't been a great running back, ever since 2014, where he had over 1,200 yards. He had a good year. But you combine the last 2 years, barely over 700 yards rushing combined, with only 2 touchdowns. So he's just somebody who just, can give it a little bit of a boost or something like that, just something that they can kind of weather the storm with, basically, because you get someone like Amir Abdullah who's on IR. So, just have Riddick there, but you also have somebody you can kind of bounce stuff off of, kind of do what the Detroit Lions did at the beginning of the year, where you would use both Abdullah and Riddick as kind of like a run-pass kind of thing else like that. So, yeah, it's a nice little stopgap, nice little, it's a veteran minimum contract, basically, so it's something that they have just so that way they can basically have someone on the active roster who's competent.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely getting up there in age, and we've kind of seen that with his production, I suppose you could say.
Right, he's 30. He hit that 30 wall.
Mm-hmm. But, I mean, I think this is a veteran that can help them out in the long run. In the long term, you have a theoretic kind of back who is really more so set for receiving in a sense, and then even then he's a little banged up right now.
Right.
So I definitely think it's a good addition. It's a good depth kind of add.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
All right, go ahead.
All right, so Colin Kaepernick got his deal restructured basically with the 49ers. Basically before that he had a 4-year deal, and they had a lot of more guaranteed money coming to him. Basically what they did, they restructured it with a 2-year deal with a player option for the second year. So monetary value stays the same for this year. That's all going to be the same. However, the second year he can choose to get a $16.5 million salary. If he plays well, wants to go to another team, he can do that. But it gives the 49ers a lot more flexibility with his contract so they can do other things, because clearly we've seen with the 49ers they need to get more players.
Yeah.
And that frees up some space for them, so that helps the team out. It also gives something to where Colin Kaepernick now, you kind of have like a prove it kind of a thing a little bit, where it's just like, okay, here's this, do what you feel is best. If you want to leave, cool, fine, we understand that. But it's not going to kill the league, gets him in a positive light with team and other teams. Oh, you played ball a little bit, you can do this with us. They didn't get it done until now. They've been trying to do it for a little bit. They probably went back and forth if like, oh, we want you to give up this much and stuff like that. But it's a nice little thing for the Niners right now. It gives them a little bit of room when they want to go after free agents or get some people high in the draft.
That's very true. I mean, they need the ability to go and get more players, because that deal was a huge deal for somebody who literally hasn't played all season.
Right, yeah.
Except for this upcoming Sunday. So
yeah, basically had dead money, even though the guy was actually on the roster.
Exactly. All right, staying in football, Jake Long, who formerly was a number 1 overall pick of the Dolphins. I'm sure you know.
I'm aware of that.
And then he went to the Rams for a while, and he's a free agent. Well, the Vikings, who have just been dropping like flies to the offensive line position, have signed the veteran to a veteran's minimum as well as $885,000, just like Forsett with an injury split of 453 because we know he hurts himself. This is I don't know if it's a good signing or I don't know if they're having to play left tackle or what. I know that Andre Smith got hurt and he's the right tackle.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know what they're going to do there. It'll be interesting to see. I mean, this is again another depth signing. I'm not going to say it's a good depth signing. I'm not going to say it's a bad one. Yeah, he's definitely been good in the past, but he's definitely has dealt with injuries in his past as well.
Right, and that was the thing. He dealt with injuries all the time. I mean, the dude was a 4-time Pro Bowler, 2-time All-Pro. Like, he was, at his peak, a very good offensive lineman, someone that absolutely was worthy of getting, maybe not number 1 overall pick, but, a higher kind of draft pick. So now you get him, like you said, either Matt Khalil or everybody else is kind of flying down on that offensive line. Hell, everybody on that offensive side, Peterson, Bradford, or Bridgewater, have been going down. So this is one of those things that it's one of the good things with like an offensive lineman kind of thing, like the Robert Gallery conundrum, where it's like you draft him at tackle, but you can kind of throw him around with guards, something like that. Just kind of like help patch the offensive line. Because one thing I've heard more than not with offensive linemen is if you have 5 offensive linemen who are just fantastic, great at everything, that's great. But it's more of like a team kind of thing, right? You have people who are kind of like all helping out each other because you basically have to deal with random
swing tackles.
Right, you have to deal with the random just giant defensive tackles who just want to run and, destroy everything. So you have people who communicate like, okay, you take him, I take him. We kind of do stuff like this. And he's been around the league enough to where he's definitely got that veteran kind of presence.
He's got that savvy to him.
Yeah, and he can go help off the offensive line. Like if the right guard gets hurt one week, if the left tackle gets hurt, he can kind of like move in and help out with stuff like that. So I like this one more than the Justin Forsett. Justin Forsett's is kind of one of those like, oh, we're going to give him, call it like 5 to 10 carries a game maybe, to where Jake Long can actually, assuming he's healthy, because that's the thing, that's what's his problem forever. If he's healthy, can actually be someone that can stabilize that offensive line.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Next for you.
All right, so finally, after a little bit of time off, you get Ronda Rousey, who's finally going to come back. She's going to be facing Amanda Nunes. You're going to go have that pay-per-view at the end of the year, UFC 207. This is probably going to draw a huge amount of money because she's been gone since last November. It's been a little bit of time for Ronda Rousey. Basically, she would always have fights about every few months. Mm-hmm. Then she got basically just knocked out as bad as I've probably seen any fight. It took a little bit of time. We didn't know for a while if Ronda Rousey was actually going to be able to get back in the UFC.
A lot of talking, yeah.
Yeah, because she kind of transitioned a little bit with, like, the Fast and the Furious movies, stuff like that. So you didn't know if that was just going to be her kind of exit from the UFC. But now she's going to face Amanda Nunes, who's not terrible. I mean, she's, beat Miesha Tate. She did lose to Kat Zingano. So it's going to be a fight. Like, it didn't matter who they were going to face. They kind of want the whole Cyborg fight. Cyborg's the one that they want more than anything else. But it's something that, to bring numbers to the UFC, because basically the only one who's like an absolute draw is Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor is like one guy that no matter who he fights, no matter when he fights, people are going to watch. Mm-hmm. Ronda Rousey is the other one, and it's going to be fun to finally see her back, see if she can actually be herself, because this is kind of the Mike Tyson effect with her now, right? She kind of shines off the apple. She's not as invincible as she was, so she can actually do some things. If she can get back and just, lock that armbar in and get another submission win and call it a minute and a half, something like that, then we're kind of going to be right back on that Ronda Rousey train.
Yeah, I mean, she's definitely been out of it for a while, but she's she's one of those very much of a polarizing figure in the sport,
right?
And I mean, she gets a lot of criticism, but at the same time, if she does real well, everybody will on the Ronda Rousey train again.
Yeah, and we all love like the kind of controversial anarchist
polarizing figures in sports.
Yeah, and she hasn't done anything terrible. She's just cocky, and she would have the whole thing where she wouldn't shake someone's hand, and she would just kind of just look crazy before the fight, stuff like that. Always looked mad, but yeah, if she comes out, she gets back and does well, we'll be right back to like loving Ronda Rousey. Not loving her, but like it's one of those things like okay, cool, we're back.
Mm-hmm. People will like her again.
Yeah.
Well, keeping it in the MMA. One real quick one to mention. Dana White made it known that Conor McGregor was fined a pretty decent penny for that little thing he had back in a UFC 202 press conference, throwing full closed cans of energy drinks at each other and water bottles.
Yeah.
He was fined $150,000. Well, Conor McGregor has told him since then that he said, "I don't ever want to fight in Nevada again, ever." That's pretty interesting. Now, I don't know if it's because he got fined, if he's upset for what happened maybe in the situation. I mean, he won that fight.
Right.
I don't know if he's upset because he got fined or something, honestly. I mean, he was fined by the Nevada Athletic Board.
Right.
Nevada State Athletic Commission. So maybe he's just upset with that.
That makes sense. Like, it's kind of one of those things that, like, he got fined a lot of money. It wasn't like kind of one of those fines where it's just like, oh, here's $25,000 or something like that. Like, no, they fined him over $100,000, $150,000. The quote that he had was just top-notch McGregor. Like, after this whole thing happens, after he gets fined that amount of money, he goes on Twitter, just like, I get fined more than these bums get paid.
That's top-notch McGregor right there.
That is just, that's just like on a tweet. That's just him just like, I got to pay that much? Really? Mm-hmm. Fine. And then just goes on Twitter just like, because he does. Like, UFC fighters don't get paid that much, you know?
Besides the purse.
Right. And even then, like, some fighters don't even get that.
And some don't, yeah.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where, he's just probably upset. We've seen Conor McGregor kind of lose his mind before. Like, he retired temporarily, so he's not one of those guys that's
he's almost kind of like a big baby sometimes.
Sometimes,
He goes on Twitter and whines.
But to be fair, when you do that as a profession, you got to be a little, whacked in the head. Like, you're not exactly the most sane person
to get beaten up.
Yes, my job is to possibly get a concussion every single time. And all right, that's my job. Let's go. Let's fight other people. Like, you got to be a little bit off to do that. Yeah. And someone probably told him, like, Connor, $150,000. Why? Because it's $150,000. And then he just kind of lost his mind for a little bit.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I guarantee. All right, you have one more for me, or
I do.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. So, one of my favorite players ever, Randy Moss.
Okay.
Someone who, throughout his career was one of the best wide receivers in the history of the game, depending on how you want to rank him with him and Owens and Moss and Tim Brown.
I really love that Raiders year.
To be fair, one of those years he had 1,000 yards receiving.
Yes, he did.
The other year, not so much.
Not even close.
No, not even close. So, he's an analyst now. They let him speak for a living, and he's pretty good at it, actually. Like, he's
great.
He's really smart. Like, he's really good
he's
insightful, everything else like that. Yeah. He used to be on Fox Sports 1. Now he's on ESPN. So, you see what people are doing around the league, and, he's talking about it, and they're like, all right, well, what could you do? Like, if you were playing right now at your age, who's right now 39 years old, what would you be able to do? And he basically said that he could get 9 to 12 touchdowns in a season.
No.
I don't think he could, and although I love the man, like, one of the reasons why I don't think he could actually do something like that is because we kind of saw him at the end of his career when he was with the not even the Minnesota Vikings, when he was with the San Francisco 49ers.
Yes.
He was on that team that went to the Super Bowl, and he only had 3 touchdowns.
The entire year.
So...
And that team was a good offense.
And that team wasn't...
That wasn't like it's the Niners now.
Right, yeah.
They were a Super Bowl team which had to put up points, and they did,
Yeah, the last time he had more than 5 was 2009. So it's, one of those things of, like, your brain thinks you can do it, but your body's just like...
your pride thinks you can do it.
And your pride thinks you can do it because he's done it forever. But it's one of those things where your body's just like, yeah, we're not, no. Mm-hmm. Like, unless you basically just, like, stand in the end zone and just try and do a jump ball every single time.
Eventually you'll get it.
Eventually you'll get some touchdowns, but I don't think you're going to get as many as you think you're going to get.
Yeah, no. That's a little... if anything, maybe you can get 9 to 10 catches.
Sure.
A game, maybe. Mm-hmm. Doubt it, though.
Yeah, because it was something that I heard Brett Favre say when they did the, like, Gruden thing or whatever. Not a Gruden camp, but, like, when Gruden was, like, interviewing Brett Favre.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they had
It's probably just normal. He loves Brett Favre. There's
that, too. So he was, like, throwing passes in, like, a gym, or not even gym, like a basketball gym, basically, to Antonio Freeman, his old wide receiver. And Favre's just like, he's throwing, he's like, man, I like that. That was fun. You want to play? No, I don't want to get hit. Mm-hmm. Like, the thing, it's like you can run, you can catch, that's fine. It's just once you get hit, then all of a sudden you realize, oh, this is not fun. This is not.
I forget what I saw it on, but Brett Favre still has an insanely strong arm.
He does.
He's just not trying to get hit anymore.
He will be 75 still with a strong arm.
Oh yeah. All right, my last of the day goes to the hockey world, in which started last night. NHL games commenced last night. Austin Matthews, who was the first overall pick of the 2016 draft, he did something in the NHL in his debut that Gordie Howe and Sidney Crosby has yet to do in their career.
Right.
In his first game, the 19-year-old scored 4 goals in his very first game. He became the third youngest player with 4 goals in a game. He surpassed only by 18-year-old Jack Hamilton, who's one of the greats, played back in the 40s, and Bob Carpenter played in the 80s. 4 goals in your first game ever.
Right.
And he became just the 4th player in modern NHL history to score at least a hat trick in their debut in their 5-4 win over the Senders. That's pretty good.
Like, I'm trying to think of like a comparison with that to like different sports. So like with the NBA, is that like 50? Is that basically going for like
that's
50, 60, something like that in your opening thing for a wide receiver? Just
like, think of Mariota, how he had 4 touchdown passes in his first game.
Right.
That still doesn't quite equate.
That's not the same. Yeah.
It's literally just try to equate it as evenly as you can to soccer, because goals in hockey and soccer are kind of even in terms of the skill it takes to get them. Mm-hmm. Obviously, shorter distances and stuff, smaller goals. But think of them in that sense, and not only because they're goals, but touchdowns. Touchdowns aren't always on you.
Right.
You can throw a short pass and get it taken 80.
Yeah.
Home runs. Yeah, that's significant. It's like kind of having 3 in one game, I suppose. That's a good one, I guess.
Yeah, maybe 4 home runs in your
3 or 4 home runs in your first game, or just in a game in general. Mm-hmm. That's kind of the same level of skill.
Yeah,
a hat trick in soccer, same kind of thing. It's all on you mainly. You can get a really nice pass, but you have to kick it in there. Mm-hmm. I guess that's almost equates to like a really good pass to catch kind of thing in football. But I would say, yeah. I mean, home runs, maybe goals are kind of a good comparison here.
Yeah,
and then I don't really know a points margin for you could add to baseball to kind of make it relevant to this, but 4 goals in your first game, that's some good stuff right there.
Yeah, it's one of those things.
You have guys that maybe get 4 goals a year.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where it's just like you said, number 1 overall pick, all the hype in the world, comes out game 1, I got you, 4 goals.
Yeah, I mean, literally, like, some guys you get looked at, they're like, oh, you'll do well. This guy came in, again, young guy.
Yeah.
4 goals.
Yeah.
He had one with 8:21. After 8:21 in the at the 8:21 mark. Mm-hmm. He had one at the 10:26 mark, the 12:49 mark, and he had one at the 14:18 mark. And that was all in the first period. He scored these. Actually, not. I'm sorry. Let me look at his again. Sorry, I was looking at all of them. So 8:21 and 14:18 were in the first period. Mm-hmm. One was assisted, one was unassisted. So he takes it to the goal himself. Then he had 2 in the second period, excuse me. So he had one at the beginning, and he had one at the end.
Right.
So through the first period and the second period, he was on fire. He was. I mean, I saw his goals too. They weren't like gimme goals.
Right.
They were nice. He played efficiently. He played quick. The kid looks pure in a sense of a skater. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, if he plays like this, if this isn't a fluke, he's got a really, really bright future ahead of him.
Right.
Food truck's here.
Food truck is here. Yeah, and it's one of those things, like you take the kid in the draft last year, Connor McDavid, like he never had anything close to that. He never had any more than 2 goals in a game.
Yeah, I don't even know what his season stats ended up being.
He was fine last year, and he's the captain, by the way, now of the team.
Oh, yeah, he's a good player.
He's fantastic. But now you get, something like that to where it's like, Matthews' first game out of the box, just like, all right, here you go, and just off, just do a great start.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what he can do at his next game, honestly, because you have a Maple Leafs team who is not, the greatest of teams at times. The Maple Leafs don't have a consistent back and forth all the time. Mm-hmm. The next game is going to be, the 13th? It's going to be Saturday against the Boston Bruins, who are not a bad team by any means.
Right.
So we'll see how he can do in that one. I mean, currently goals per game, they are 4th overall. Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously after one game.
Sure.
Their penalty kill is at 100%. They're the best team in hockey.
Yes.
But they look great. And for a center, that's a solid day for 4 goals. So we'll have to see where he can go from there. I mean, technically speaking, one would hope up, but in a sense, you can only kind of go down.
300 goals in the season.
That is insane and unlikely.
Probably yes.
We'll see. Anyways, that's it for us today. As always, thank you for listening. I'll be back on Monday. Anthony here will be here tomorrow with Ben. Does Jeremiah do the sports show with you?
Yeah.
And Jeremiah will be here as well. I feel like I ask that every week.
Or he does the football.
So it's just you and Ben for sports?
Yeah, for
so you lied to me. Okay, so just you and Ben. Ben will be back tomorrow. Of course, he is out learning. He's finishing his last year up at college, big boy. And Anthony will be here, but I'll be back Monday. Thank you guys for listening, of course, as always. For Ben.
I'm Anthony.
And I'm Alex. And we will see you guys They'll see you tomorrow. I'll see you on Monday. Have a good one, guys.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.